Oh, hurricane alert, everyone's hiding. The speed of the wind outside is more than 75 miles per hour seems like a lot, but this storm is moving at 400 miles per hour. Wait, do such speeds exist? Why, but to see a storm that fast you'll have to travel to Jupiter, so let the journey begin. The planet is huge, almost 1,300 Earths could fit into this gas giant. It's also incredibly hot, with the temperatures reaching about 43,000 F. At the planet's core. Unfortunately, you can't land on Jupiter's surface because, well, being a gas giant, it doesn't have any solid surface, but you can go deeper into Jupiter's atmosphere. Look at these thick brown, yellow, red, and white clouds passing by there. What make the planet look colorful and kind of streaky? If you continue descending toward the center of the planet, you'll see its atmosphere mostly made up of hydrogen and helium gas becoming liquid. It happens because of immense atmospheric pressure. The planet's core itself is a mysterious object. Scientists still haven't figured out whether it's a molten ball of thick liquid or a solid rock 14 to 18 times the mass of Earth. Anyway, exploring Jupiter isn't the main goal of your trip. No, you've arrived here to see the great red spot. It's an enormous storm raging in the southern hemisphere of the gas giant. Its top parts are towering more than 5 mil above the tops of the surrounding clouds. The storm is 1.3 times wider than our planet. In 2017, NASA's Juno space probe managed to collect lots of data about the red spot, and it turned out that this monster of a storm goes more than 200 mil down into the planet's atmosphere. That's 30 to 100 times deeper than any ocean on Earth. But imprecise, these measurements are most likely can be reaching even deeper. The great red spot is colder than the rest of the atmosphere, and keep in mind that Jupiter's temperature's area's 234 degrees Fahrenheit. In the upper cloud layers, on the other hand, the closer to the core, the hotter it gets. Mysteriously, the highest temperatures ever recorded on the gas giant occurred in the atmosphere right above the great red spot there. The heat reached 2,400 to. This temperature is higher than that of lava on our planet. Astronomers believe that the turbulence caused by the storm might produce gravitational and sound waves that can be responsible for the superheating, but the storm itself is warmer at the bottom than at the top. People have been watching the moving vortex on Jupiter for more than 150 years. Some time ago, astronomers predicted that it would gradually slow down and become smaller or disappear entirely, but that turned out not to be the case. After having analyzed all the data received with the help of the Hubble Space Telescope, researchers were baffled to discover that the winds at the outer boundaries of the storm had actually picked up speed. The change in the wind speed is no more than 1 and 2 mph during 1 Earth year. It's a tiny change, but however small the difference is, it still means a lot. The wind speed at the edges of the storm can reach a mind-boggling 400 miles per hour. That gets faster than Earth's tornadoes. At the same time, if you found yourself at the center of the great red spot, you wouldn't be too impressed. The winds there move way more slowly. Scientists faced lots of challenges when they were trying to understand the mystery that was the great red spot. It's unclear what fuels the storm. Can it be the nature of the storm's home planet? Since it's a gas giant, Jupiter doesn't have any solid ground, so there's no friction, which might be the only thing that could make the storm weaken. The hot gases in the planet's atmosphere are always moving, rising, falling, swirling, just like on our home planet, where cooler and warmer air mix and merge into one another, forming giant circling storms. Astronomers think that once several enormous storms could have come together and created the Great Red Spot. And now it keeps going by constantly, drawing cool gases from below and hot gases from above, plus the storm might be absorbing other smaller vortices. This makes the Great Red Spot even more powerful. Unfortunately, thick clouds on Jupiter don't allow astronomers to see what's going on in the planet's lower atmosphere. Scientists have been speculating on what may hide beneath the Great Red Spot for decades. Is it a massive volcano? Unlikely. Jupiter is mostly made up of gases and it doesn't have a crust that could crack, letting lava escape from the planet's interior. There are also a few theories explaining why the storm has its trademark color. It varies from whitish and pale salmon to bright orange and brick red. Some scientists believe the answer lies deep below the Great Red Spot, closer to the planet's surface. A colorless layer of gas might be reacting to the UV radiation coming from the sun. This is probably what gives the storm its red color, but so far it's just a theory. Hey, your guess is as good as mine. Jupiter isn't the only planet that can boast having a giant storm. Another one as wide as our home planet rages on Saturn. It's called the Great White Spot. How clever! The storm has a tail of white clouds encircling the entire planet. It occurs every 30 years or so. The storm indeed starts as a spot, but then it starts stretching and stretching. Astronomers have figured out that the Great White Spot is actually a huge system of thunderstorms. At the top of the storm, lightning can flash more than 10 times per second. But the main mystery about the Great White Spot is where it gets its energy from. Some scientists think it may be powered by the sun. Others argue that the storm's cloud pattern only makes sense if there's an internal source of heat that can power the winds. Anyway, severe storms on different planets of the solar system aren't the only space mystery that makes astronomers scratch their heads. Let's move to Pluto, the large known dwarf planet in the solar system, and explore its atmosphere. It rises really high above the surface of the planet and has more than 20 layers, all of them freezing cold and extremely condensed. By the way, our moon also has some sort of an atmosphere called an exosphere. It consists of helium, neon, and argon. Is 10 trillion times less dense than Earth's atmosphere while traveling through space. Watch out for black holes. A black hole is a place where gravity is so strong that even light can't get out. But black holes can sometimes behave like a massive galactic volcano. From time to time they flare up. Sounds like me, but instead of spewing lava, they produce enormous amounts of energy, and this phenomenon leaves gaping holes in the surrounding material and gas. A short while ago, scientists discovered one of the largest craters in the universe. Radio and X-ray telescopes detected a Superman massive black hole that threw a temper tantrum many years ago. It happened in a galaxy cluster about 390 million light-years away from Earth. The creator this event left behind could fit 15 Milky Way galaxies. Yeah, I can't get my head around that either. During your space voyage, think twice before landing on unknown planets, otherwise you may end up in a place like K2141b. That's a planet outside of our solar system. At first glance, it's not that different from Earth. It has liquid oceans that evaporate, form clouds, condense, and get back to the surface as rain, but instead of water it rains rocks. The surface of this exoplanet is covered with lava seas dozens of miles deep. The temperatures on the K2141b reach 5,000 during the day. That's toasty enough for the magma in the oceans to vaporize into the atmosphere. Then supersonic winds, which can move at the speed of 1 m per second, Carry this rock vapor into the planets. Night's side the vaporized magma cools down, becomes liquid again and falls as a rocky rain. Not a vacation spot too hot. I'll pass. Venus most likely used to be covered with oceans from 30 to 1000 ft deep. Also some water was locked in the soil of the planet. On top of that, Venus had stable temperatures of 68 to 122 degrees Fahrenheit, which you have to admit was quite pleasant and not that different from the temperatures on Earth nowadays. So what I'm getting at is that for 3 billion years, right until something irrevocable happened 700 million years ago, Venus could have been habitable, but now it's not. The moon is the second brightest object in our sky at the same time among other astronomical bodies. It's one of the dimmest and least reflective. Our natural satellite only seems bright because it's so close to Earth. For comparison, our planet looks much brighter when you look at it from space. It's because clouds, ice, and snow reflect than most types of rod. Triton, Neptune's moon, has all its surface covered with several layers of ice. If this satellite replaced our current moon, the night sky would get 7 times brighter. Neutron stars are some of the smallest yet most massive objects in space. They're usually about 12 diameter, but are several times heavier than the Sun. Oh, and they also spin about 600 times per second, far faster than your average figure skater. Saturn is the least dense planet in the solar system and has 1/8 the average Earth's density, and still, because of its large volume, the planet is 95 times more massive than Earth. A transient lunar phenomenon is one of the most enigmatic things happening on the mode. It's a short-lived light, color, or some other change on the satellite's surface. Most commonly, it's random flashes of light. Astronomers have been observing this phenomenon since the 1950s. They've noticed that the flashes occur randomly. Sometimes they can happen several times a week. After that, they disappear for several months. Some of them don't last longer than a couple of minutes, but there have been those that continued for hours. The year was 1969, one day before Apollo 11 landed on the moon. One of the mission participants noticed that one part of the lunar surface was more illuminated than the surrounding landscape. It looked as if that area had a kind of fluorescence to it. Unfortunately, it's still unclear if this phenomenon was connected with the mysterious lunar flashes. Trash isn't just a problem in Earth's ocean cities and forests. There is a thing called space junk, which is any human-made object that's been left in space and now serves no purpose. There's also natural debris from meteoroids and other cosmic objects. There are currently over 500,000 pieces of space debris orbiting the Earth at speeds high enough to cause significant damage if they were to collide with a spacecraft or satellite. NASA does its best to track every single object to ensure that missions outside Earth can reach their destination safely. Our Sun is insanely massive. Once a proof, 99.86% of all the mass in the solar system is the mass of the Sun, in particular the hydrogen and helium it's made of. The remaining 0.14% is mostly the mass of the solar system's 8 planets. The Sun's temperature is hotter than the surface of a star. The surface temperature reaches 10,000. Atmosphere heats up to millions of degrees. If someone could dig a tunnel straight into the center of the planet and out the opposite side, and you were adventurous enough to jump into it, it would take you 42 minutes to fall to the other side. You'd speed up as you fell, reaching maximum speed by the time you reach Earth's core. After the halfway point, you would then fall upwards, getting slower and slower by the time you reach the opposite surface. Your Speed would be back to zero unless you manage to climb out of the hole. You'd immediately start falling again back down or up to the other side of the planet. This trip would go on forever, all thanks to the weird effects of gravity. It might be a fun way to spend an afternoon. There might be more metals, for example titanium or iron, in lunar craters than astronomers used to think. The main problem with this finding, it contradicts the main theory about how the moon was formed. That theory says that Earth's natural satellite was spun off from our planet after a collision with a massive space object. But then why does Earth's metal poor crust have much less iron oxide than the moon's? It might mean the moon was formed from the material lying much deeper inside our planet, or these metals could have appeared when the molten lunar surface was slowly cooling down, or maybe, as they've been saying for centuries, it's made of green cheese. Earth could have been purple before it turned blue and green. One scientist has a theory that a substance existed in ancient microbes before chlorophyll, that thing that makes plants green, evolved on Earth. This substance reflected sunlight in red and violet colors, which combined to make purple. If true, the young Earth may have been teeming with strange purple-colored critters before all the green stuff appeared. The highest mountain in the solar system is Olympus Mons on Mars. It's 3 times as high as Mount Everest, the Earth's highest mountain above sea level. If you were standing on top of Olympus Mons, you wouldn't understand you were standing on a mountain. Its slopes would be hidden by the planet's curvature. Astronomers have found a massive reservoir of water in space, the largest ever detected. Too bad it's also the farthest, 12 billion light-years away from us. The water vapor cloud holds 14 trillion times as much water as all the Earth's oceans combined. What are we supposed to do with that information? Venus spins at its own unhurried pace. A full rotation takes 243 Earth days, and it takes the planet a bit less than 225 Earth days to go all the way around the Sun. It means a day on Venus is longer than a year. There's very little seismic activity going on inside the moon, yet many moonquakes caused by our planet's gravitational pull sometimes happen several miles below the surface. After that, tiny cracks and fissures appear in the satellite surface, and gases escape through them. Hey, they sometimes escape from me too. Now Mars is the last of the inner planets, which are also called terrestrial since they're made up of rocks and metals. The red planet has a core made mostly of iron, nickel, and sulfur. It's between 900 and 1200 m across. The core doesn't move. That's why Mars lacks a planet-wide magnetic field. The weak magnetic field it has is just 100% of the Earth. When the planets in the solar system were just starting to form, Earth didn't have a moon for the longest time. It took 100 million years for our natural satellite to appear. There are several theories as to how the moon came into existence, but the prevailing one is the fishing theory. Somebody went fishing and caught the moon. Actually, no, the fishing theory proposes that the moon was formed when an object collided with Earth, sending particles flying about. Gravity pulled the particles together and the moon was created. It eventually settled down on the Earth's ecliptic plane, which is the path that the moon orbits. So looks like the green cheese is off the table. Now the largest single living thing on Earth turns out to be a mushroom in Oregon. This enormous honey mushroom lives in Malheur National Forest and covers an area of 3.7 square millet. Could be as much as 82,000 years old. You could be forgiven for missing it though, since most of it's hidden underground. When the roots of individual honey Mushrooms meet, they can fuse together to become a single fungus, which explains how this one got so big. If you could gather all that mushroomy stuff into one big ball, it could weigh as much as 35,000 tons. That's about as heavy as 200 gray whales. Hey, that's a whale of a mushroom. The largest asteroid in the solar system is called Vesta, and it's so big that it's sometimes even called a dwarf planet. A trip to the nearest star apart from the sun would take you 5 million years on a commercial airplane. That's what I call a long haul flight. Space isn't supposed to be black. There are stars everywhere, shouldn't they light up everything around? Well, you don't see stars wherever you look, because some of them haven't existed long enough for their light to reach Earth. A day on Uranus lasts 17 hours 14 minutes and 24 seconds, but get this, the planet has a tilt of around 98 degrees, and that makes a season on the gas giant lasts 21 Earth years. Now, some scientists believe that our planet used to have an additional satellite. According to their research, a small celestial body about 750 miles wide orbited Earth like a second moon at most, likely crashed into our main satellite. Later on, such a collision could explain why the two sides of the moon look so different from each other, one being heavily cratered and rough, or it could be the green cheese when you look at photos taken from spaceships or the International Space Station that show sunlit objects like Earth or the moon. Something seems wrong. Space looks too empty, no magical scenery of a nighttime sky full of stars. It would be incredibly boring to go stargazing in space, since the sky is always dark during the daytime. The sky on our home planet is blue because of the diffusion of light. It happens when sunlight goes through the atmosphere, but if you were on the moon or somewhere else in space, there would be no atmosphere to spread this light around. That's why the sky there would always appear black, but it doesn't mean less bright out there. If you were looking out the window of the space station, you'd see just as much direct sunlight as you would gazing out of your apartment window during a cloudless day, maybe even more when taking a picture of on a sunny day. You'll probably use a short exposure together with the narrow aperture setting on your camera. This way, just a short burst of light will get, and that's similar to how our pupils contract in sunlight so that they don't have to deal with too much light. And since it's just as bright up there in space, the process is the same when you take pictures of sunlit objects. They're using short exposure. You can get good bright pictures of Earth or the surface of the moon, but it also means there will be no stars in the picture. Even up there, stars are relatively dim. They don't emit enough light to show up in photos taken with such settings. Our home planet has a blue sky that slowly transforms into a beautiful orange-red palette at dusk and dawn. But if you ever get a chance to watch a sunset on Mars, you should expect the opposite: an orange-brown daytime sky that gets a bluish tint at sunset. First of all, Mars is farther away from the sun than our planet, so when you're looking at the sun from the Martian surface, of course it looks fainter and smaller. And not just that, the sun observed from Mars is just a bluish-white dot surrounded by a blue halo. The thin atmosphere of the red planet contains large dust particles. They create an effect called scattering. It occurs when the diameter of particles in the atmosphere is almost the same as the wavelength of the scattered light. This effect filters out the red light from the sun's rays, so only the blue light would reach your eyes on Mars. How come Earth doesn't have rings? All gas giants in our solar system, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, have such rings, whereas the rocky planets Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars don't. There are two theories about how rings can appear around a planet. They might be just some material left from the times when the planet was forming, or they may be the remains of a moon that got destroyed by a collision with some space body or torn apart by the strong gravitational pull of its parent planet. The gas giants formed in the outer regions of our solar system, while all the rocky planets are in the inner part. So maybe the inner planets were more protected from potential collisions that could have formed their rings. There are also more moons in the outer regions of our solar system, which could be another reason why the planets there have rings. Also, bigger planets have stronger gravity. It means that they can keep their rings stable after they form. Some experts believe Earth used to have a ring system a long time ago, created a dense ring of debris around it. Some scientists think that this debris formed not a ring but what we know today as the moon. There's probably a giant planet lurking at the edge of the solar system, far beyond Neptune. Scientists call this mysterious hypothetical world Planet 9. If it does exist, it's probably similar to Uranus or Neptune and 10 times more massive than our home planet. It's likely to circle around the Sun, but in the outer reaches of the solar system, about 20 times farther than Neptune. Another interesting theory says that Planet 9 could actually be a black hole the size of a grapefruit that warps space in a similar way a large planet would, even though we once thought it was a rare substance in space. Water exists all over our solar system. For example, you can often find it in asteroids and comets. It's also in craters on the Moon and Mercury. We still don't know if there's enough water to support potential human colonies if we decide to move there, but some amount of water is definitely present there. Mars has water at its poles too. It's mostly hidden in the layers of ice and probably under the planet's dusty surface. Europa, Jupiter's moon, has some water too. This is the most likely candidate we know about to host life outside Earth. There's probably a whole ocean of liquid water under its frozen surface. It might actually contain twice as much water as all of Earth's oceans combined. Neptune is unexpectedly warm, even though it's 30 times as far from the Sun as our planet and receives less sunlight and heat, but it still radiates way more heat than it gets. It also has way more activity in its atmosphere than you'd suspect. ESP, especially if you compare it to its neighbor Uranus. Both of these planets emit the same amount of heat, even though Uranus is much closer to the Sun. No one knows why Neptune has extremely strong winds that can reach a speed of up to 1,500 mph. Can they produce this heat? Or maybe it's because of the planet's core or its gravitational force. There's a monster black hole hurtling through space at a speed of 5 million mph. Scientists located it with the Hubble Space Telescope. They believe it weighs as much as 1 billion suns. It was supposed to stay put in the center of its home galaxy, but some gravitational forces are pushing it around. At one point, this black hole is going to break free from its galaxy and continue roaming the universe. Luckily, it's still 8 billion years away from us. Solar storms are so powerful that they could leave us in complete darkness. Back in July 2012, the strongest solar storm in over 150 years narrowly missed Earth. Coronal mass ejections, or CMR, large bubbles of ionized gas. They tore through our orbit. Back then, if they had caught our planet in the crosshairs, we would have literally been in the firing line. We'd have faced solar matter hurtling towards Earth, damaging computers and causing power outages that would have lasted for months. A surprise solar storm hit us on June 2022 one photographer even managed to capture stunning bright auroras that flashed across the dawn sky in Calgary, Canada, and lasted for 5 minutes. They were caused by the storm. Vampire stars are a real thing. They're part of a binary star and they can literally drain the life out of the other star in the system they do it to. Keep burning for a longer time. It works like this: a smaller star with a lower mass steals its siblings' hydrogen fuel to increase its own mass. This vampire star then becomes hotter, plus its color changes to striking blue. This way it looks much younger. How sneaky the color of the universe is. Dubbed cosmic latte, the light coming from our galaxies and stars within them, as well as clouds of gas and dust in the observable universe, have a specific color. It's an ivory tint, pretty close to white. The universe is beige because there are a bit more areas that produce green, yellow, and red light than those that emit blue.